guns have a rather interesting history on their OG Xbox. There were quite a few light gun peripherals released for the OG Xbox, but only 3 games. One of the titles had 3 games in it, but I don't want to digress. Light guns, though, there were numbers of light guns released. The Silent Scope, is probably the most famous. The Silent Scope gun for Xbox is, a very, very interesting piece in itself, and it commands a rather, large price, but still, nonetheless, it's, one of the premier light guns, probably the light gun I like the most on Xbox. And, it goes with or without the Silent Scope game. In addition to those, we had the Mad Catz blasters. Yes, that's right. Mad Catz partnered with one of these games, this was, I guess, kind of the official gun of that game. Then, I have this. This is a Chinese offering. Looks rather illegal to me. Very realistic looking. Does have a red thing, so it isn't. This gun I don't know a whole lot about. I've had it for a long time. It says Cyber Games on it. If somebody actually knows the history of this gun, let me know. One thing I can tell you is that it is an interesting design in itself. And the design of many of these light guns came from other systems. And they were just, changed with a connector for an Xbox. And that's basically how they arrived here. I think that, manufacturers such as Pelican and, Mad Catz, who were in this, space on the OG Xbox, assumed that there was going to be a number of games. And I think Microsoft assumed there were going to be a number of games. But the problem with light gun games, as everybody knows, is that you need a CRT to use the light gun games. And Microsoft, was leading that transition away from, CRTs and towards new monitors, flat panels. And when we started looking at flat panel televisions, that meant no more light guns. So the 3 games that were released, for the light guns, we're going to look at all gameplay from all 3 and talk about the performance of the light guns here at the end in the summary. This is the one I was explaining, was sponsored. I don't know if it was sponsored or developed with Mad Catz, or Mad Catz is the official gun. It does say on the front light gun is supported, but on the back, it says that the light gun is necessary for the game. Now this is the more interesting one. Interesting about this game is that it is able to use the light gun and the steering wheel. We don't really know why, and I've never really talked to anybody who could explain to me why or what was the idea of using the light gun with this game. So the granddaddy of light gun games on the OG Xbox is the on-rail shooter, the Silent Scope Complete Collection, which really is 3 games. So there could be an argument that there are 5, but I kind of think there's really only 3 releases. So if you bought a light gun for your Xbox, we're a little light on content, that's for sure. Was these 3 games enough, or was there something here that they could have done more if CRTs would have remained popular?
House of the Dead 3 on original Xbox is the quintessential best light gun game that you can get for the original Xbox. It is probably one of the best of the House of the Dead series. It's still at its core as a rail shooter. And, it does have single and multiplayer modes. And, it's, one of Sega's probably better arcade offerings. And certainly as far as the game itself goes, it actually has a pretty deep storyline. And it still probably is the best of the light gun presentations on the original Xbox. But, when you start to really look at the amount of content that you have that you can use the light gun with, even though this is a pretty good game and it's got some pretty good reviews, the end result is that, most folks are going to say, hey man, it's still only, a game that, I could only play with light gun and only if I have a CRT. But still, it's a fun experience and one that, you may want to have if you're an original Xbox owner and have a light gun. But I'm not sure I would be going out to buy a light gun to play this game. Starsky and Hutch can be best described as kind of a vehicular combat game. It was developed by British studio Mind's Eye Production, and it's based on the television series. Starsky and Hutch, will clean up Bay City in their Gran Torino. The game is set up as sort of a two-player affair, with one person driving the car while the other person uses the light gun to shoot targets. As far as the Xbox version of the game, well, it wasn't a great reception. It only got a 58 in its Metacritic rating. And while we played the game, our opinion was it was an interesting affair, but not really that impressive, to be perfectly honest. It was obvious that the developers had a lot of experience with the driving aspects. As the car drives well, the scenery looks fairly good. I mean, it does have a decent presentation. It does look like the old TV series, but it just really wasn't that fun. And as a light gun game, and just a light gun game at that, I think you may find it to be rather boring. Drive the car around as you see and shoot at things. And sometimes you even get a little bit of a bonus jump in there as well. Silent Scope Complete for OG Xbox contains Silent Scope, Silent Scope 2, Silent Scope 3, all in one package. It also has the Silent Scope EX, which was released in the arcades in 2001, and it was included in Silent Scope 3 for PlayStation 2 and on Silent Scope Complete for Xbox. But what I think is interesting is, I don't know that the game got progressively better as the series wore on. Honestly, if you want to look at where the game is, I mean, each of the games are a little bit different, but I would have to agree with most folks that the first game is probably the one in this rail shooter series that you're going to want to spend time checking out. What we did notice during our gameplay testing was that the guns, there is no methodology that we can reliably use, at least that I have found, to measure these consumer light guns. What I did try to do is I tried to use each light gun in a scenario in the game and see how each of the light guns responded. The Silent Scope rifle was, in blaster mode, as I like to call it, kind of was my favorite. Then my cheap Chinese Xbox knockoff was kind of my next favorite for this game. Honestly, I like the first one the best. The graphics probably aren't the best, but honestly, as far as the gameplay and so forth, I found it the most interesting. This one, though, again, when you're looking at the amount of light gun games available, unless you're an honest-to-God light gun enthusiast, I'm not sure you're going to find a lot here in the Silent Scopes Complete series to entertain you more than once or twice through. That's for sure.
So, what do I really think about light gun and OG Xbox and what might have been? Well, here's the thing. When glass tubes, CRTs, went away and we moved to flat panels, things changed. Light guns were just not something that was an emphasis was put on. And I do think that while the peripheral was popular, it's one of the more interesting things from the retro era to take a look at. However, I think there are much better platforms if you want to play light gun games than the OG Xbox. There just isn't enough content. I wish there were more content. I would love for there to be more content, but there just isn't. What I would tell you is that unless you are a really hardcore Xbox collector, light gun games on the OG Xbox might be better left on the shelf. This is Marlbs. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye now.